Hey guys, tonight we're stepping, barefoot and bleary-eyed, into the sweltering stone corridors of a Roman bathhouse. You're not here to lounge, sip wine, or gossip about imperial scandals in a heated pool. No, you've just been hired. Congratulations. You're officially a Roman balneator, a bath worker. Your shift starts before sunrise and ends. Well, let's just say the moon will be high by the time you crawl out. The walls around you sweat more than the patrons. The air tastes like warm brass and damp socks. Somewhere overhead, a voice is already barking your name, or at least a version of it you don't recognize yet. You shuffle in, shirt already sticking to your back, feet slapping the slick floor. You're not late. The bath's just never really closed. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is, sweaty marble floors or not. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The steam hits you first. It seeps around corners, curls along your ankles, then creeps up like a living thing. You blink against it, trying to make out the outline of your workplace. The thermi stretches out ahead of you like a temple built by people who wanted to sweat themselves into the afterlife. Columns, basins, braziers, and somewhere beyond it all, the fire. You're not here to manage the front room, by the way. That cushy gig belongs to the doorkeeper, the Asterius. He gets to sit near the light, with a small stool and even smaller responsibilities. You're headed deeper. Through the fog, you pass the first early patrons. Men in tunics already half unwrapped, tossing casual glances your way. You don't make eye contact. A few chuckle. They remember their first day too. There's a rhythm to this place. The Roman baths aren't just about washing. They're about status, stamina, and soaking long enough to forget your other obligations. But for you, there's only one obligation. Keep the place running. That means checking the caldarium first, the hottest room, and making sure it didn't collapse overnight. Oh yes, it happens. A poorly vented hypocaust system, and boom, brick stew. You duck under a low arch and step inside. The heat is immediate. Not like summer heat. No, this is Cave of a Dragon heat. Your lungs pinch. Your earlobes sweat. Welcome to the engine room of public hygiene. The marble walls shimmer with condensation. Pools gurgle lazily in the corners, and from beneath the floor, you can hear the faint hiss of the hypocaust. The underfloor heating system Romans invented to make everyone's life just slightly more miserable if they happen to work here. The men in here are silent for now. A few grumble. Someone sneezes. You keep your head down and check the grates. No blockages. No rats. That's a small miracle. Most patrons don't think about what keeps this room hot. But you do, because in about 10 minutes, you're the one dragging the firewood into the belly of this beast. And believe me, Rome eats wood like toddlers eat grapes. Fistfuls at a time. You step back out, wiping your arm across your forehead. Your shift hasn't officially begun until you smell faintly of smoked armpit and eucalyptus. On the way to the furnace room, you pass a naked man humming off-key and smearing olive oil into his belly button. He raises a hand in greeting. You nod politely, as if this is normal. Because in here it is. The thermi wasn't just for bathing. It was the social engine of the Roman world. Poor people came here to wash. Rich people came to be seen washing. Everyone came for the heat and the gossip. Historians still argue whether these places were truly public in the way we understand today. Some were free, yes, but many were ticketed, operated privately, and full of hierarchies. Who got to enter which pool first? Who got oiled? Who didn't? And you? You're at the very bottom of that ladder, somewhere beneath the cleaning tools. Your name probably isn't even your name. More likely, you were assigned something easy to shout. Maybe kata, or Felix, or boy, doesn't matter. You answer to everything. You duck through another stone corridor, nearly slipping on a slick patch of spilled oil. You'll clean that later. For now, you've arrived at the Prefernium, the mouth of the monster. This is the fire chamber, a low-ceilinged inferno fed constantly by fuel, ash, and your short remaining patience. You step inside and the world goes orange. Flames lick the stone walls, casting weird shadows that make the racks of stacked firewood look like ghost limbs. A pile of singed sandals lies in the corner. You're not the first to drop one too close. The heat here doesn't warm you, it melts you. You pull your tunic up over your mouth and try not to breathe too deeply. The smoke tastes like wet rope and regret. You grab a wooden rake and begin stirring the coals. It's not romantic. It's not even dramatic. It's mostly just exhausting. Every few minutes, more fuel. Every few minutes, another check to make sure the grates aren't clogged, the airflow is steady, and nothing has collapsed. You know how people say working in the tech industry is high pressure? Try managing the literal temperature of aristocratic body water. Just outside, someone yells for towels. That's not your job. Yet. But it will be. You're barely done wiping the soot from your eyes when the next task finds you. What? It's not a suggestion. It's a command, hurled down the hall like a war cry. You drop the rake, shoulders aching, and begin the long shuffle back toward the supply alcove. You're going to need more firewood again. This bathhouse doesn't just heat one room. It heats three: the caldarium, the tepidarium, and the laconicum, each needing its own careful balance of warmth. Too cold, and patrons complain. Too hot, and they faint. And while the Romans may have conquered most of the known world, they never quite figured out how to do indoor plumbing without turning you into a glorified furnace elf. You hoist a load of olive wood logs onto your back. They're slick from last night's rain, and you nearly lose your footing on the moss-covered paving stones. You're pretty sure your left sandal is about to give up entirely. That's okay. No one looks at your feet down here. The Prefernium is glowing even hotter when you return. The stone threshold radiates like the rim of a forge. You heave the wood onto the pile and resume stoking. The flames leap as if grateful. The heat slaps you again, full force, reminding you that Roman engineering was not built for sympathy. To keep the hot air moving properly through the hypocaust system, the raised floor supported by tiny columns, you have to make sure the fire never dips. If it does, the floors go cold, the walls sweat weirdly, and the noblemen in the caldarium threaten to report you to the aedile. Do you know what happens when the aedile gets involved? Audits. And nobody wants an audit of bathhouse temperature logs. Trust me, you're pouring sweat now. It's not even mid-morning. The fire roars on, and for a moment, you hallucinate that it's laughing at you. You blink, rub your sleeve across your brow, and pull back before your face melts off like last week's unlucky apprentice. Historians still argue whether bath workers were slaves, paid staff, or something in between. The answer seems to be all of the above. Some were owned, some were hired, some worked off debts, or were born into it. What you all shared was this: blistered skin and the faint, constant smell of boiled sandal leather. You're allowed a brief break now, 10 minutes at most, but only if someone else is manning the fires. You duck out, your tunic clinging like a damn curtain, and gulp down a ladle of well water in the corner courtyard. It's warm, slightly metallic, still the best thing you've tasted in 12 hours. A group of boys runs past you, tossing stones and laughing. Bath apprentices. They're still fresh, still have hope. One of them bumps your hip without looking. He doesn't say sorry. You don't bother reacting. Why start a fight you'll lose while covered in soot? Back inside, you get called to the furnace of the laconicum, the dry sweat room. This one's trickier. Instead of heating water, you're baking people. Like human bread rolls. The chamber is circular, with a domed ceiling and echoey acoustics that make every grunt and sigh sound 3 times louder. The floor is raised here too, resting on a network of clay bricks that trap and circulate heat. You kneel at the mouth of another fire tunnel and poke the flames until the bricks begin to glow faintly. The men in the laconicum don't say much. They're wrapped in woolen towels, breathing through clenched teeth, pretending they're not seconds away from passing out. One of them mutters a prayer to Apollo. Another tries to chat you up about his leg cramps. You nod like you're qualified. 1 fire, 2 fire, 3 fires managed. You got the system running now, even if your hands look like overcooked sausages. You're not even 20 yet, and already you've mastered the ancient Roman art of not dying of heat stroke before noon. And then, just as you sit on a stone ledge to rest, you hear the call again. Wood, of course. By midday, your arms are trembling from the sheer repetition. Wood, fire, stir, sweat. It's a rhythm that matches the heartbeat of the bathhouse itself. You think about your predecessor, gone now. They say he got reassigned to the latrine pits. You don't ask why. That's a promotion downward, if you're wondering. While you heave another armload onto the fire, a senior balneator ambles past and gives your work a nod. That's the closest thing to praise you'll get today. He drops a ragged piece of olive branch at your feet, something burned black on one end. A sign. Your next job's coming soon. You're being rotated. New post. New task. And if you thought feeding the fire was bad, well, just wait until you meet the floor. You follow the scorched olive twig like it's a royal summons, though no crown awaits you. Only a mop. A long-handled wooden one, bristling with horsehair and the faint, eternal aroma of old feet. Welcome to the next glamorous stage of your bathhouse career, floor duty. The central tepidarium is your territory now, a warm room in name, but don't let the label fool you. It's worn the way a stew pot is warm right before it boils. And unlike the caldarium, where most folks sweat in peace, the tepidarium is the transit hub, the thoroughfare. People pass through here, constantly oiled, wet, muddy, some of them extremely slippery and very, very entitled. Your job? Keep the floors clean enough not to cause an elite neck-breaking incident, but not so clean that patrons accuse you of wasting water. It's a delicate balance. One thanks you for. You start in the corner, pushing the mop across a stretch of marble already shiny with bath oil, scented herbs, and at least one visible toenail clipping. The floor hisses softly under your feet as droplets fall from passing men, soldiers, merchants, senators' cousins. They move with the languid confidence of people who've never cleaned up after themselves. One man, a wide-shouldered sort with a gold-edged towel and an opinion on everything, glares at you as he slides past. Try not to mop me into the drains, boy. He chuckles at his own joke. You resist the urge to test his balance. Instead, you nod. Of course, citizen. He's not a citizen. You can tell by the accent. But that's not your battle today. Today, you're trying not to die via a banana peel moment on a patch of soap-slick tile. The Romans didn't mess around with bathhouse flooring. It's beautiful, intricate, and wildly impractical. Geometric mosaics, swirling fish patterns, little dolphins in bright tessery, all charming until they're coated in olive oil and someone's running to the frigidarium. Which brings you to rule one of mop duty: never turn your back on a door. People burst through them like it's a chariot race. And you, humble floor guardian, are the target. Twice already today, someone skidded past you, towel flapping like a surrender flag. One slipped so hard he took out a stool, a jug of rose water, and his own dignity. You mopped that up too. Historians still argue whether Roman bathhouses had designated cleaning staff or if junior workers rotated roles. Some inscriptions suggest job titles like fullo, laundry worker, or linearius, towel guy, but there's little mention of a floor mopper, which makes sense. It's a job that's both essential and completely invisible. And here's the kicker. You're not even allowed to use soap. Just warm water and a few handfuls of crushed herbs, if you're lucky. Why? Because the medicus balneae, the bathhouse doctor, insists too much lather makes the floors more slippery. You'd argue the point, but the last guy who questioned him ended up cleaning the vomitorium after a senator's feast. You pause at the halfway mark, leaning on your mop like a soldier resting on a spear. Your arms hum from the effort. Your back's sore in a way you didn't know backs could be. And every few seconds, someone walks across your freshly mopped section with the confidence of a man stepping on a battlefield he's already conquered. There's a small closet tucked behind a curtained arch, your retreat when the crowds get heavy. Inside, you find a clay jar of fresh water, a second mop head, and a bucket full of soaking cloths that smell like marjoram and mild despair. As you swap out your mop head, a junior attendant ducks in beside you. He's about 12, barefoot, and grinning like he just stole Jupiter's sandals. Someone slipped on your patch, he whispers, eyes wide with glee. Bad. 2 feet in the air, like a goose getting kicked. You close your eyes. Do they blame me? He shrugs. No, he blamed Mercury. Small blessings. Back out you go. You work in long arcs now, dragging the mop like a painter with a very sweaty canvas. The tepidarium's marble glows faintly in the filtered light from a clear-story window, where the sunlight stabs through the steam in warm, golden beams. For a second, it's beautiful, tranquil even. Then someone sneezes violently into the pool. You make a note to mop that direction next. The day wears on. You develop a rhythm. Mop, dodge, bow, repeat. You start to recognize the regulars. The old man with the cane who always drops his towel on purpose. The talkative baker who insists on telling you about his bread's crumb structure. The woman who wears more jewelry than clothing and leaves a faint trail of sandalwood oil behind her. Yes, women do use the baths, but generally in separate shifts. Though in some provincial towns, the rules blur, and you've heard stories. Let's just say they involve open windows, incorrect towel placements, and disciplinary hearings. Your mop finds a puddle of something you hope is bath water. You try not to think too hard. Romans were advanced, sure, but even they hadn't quite figured out why one should not eat figs while soaking in a public bath. As you finish your third full sweep of the tepidarium, a bell clangs in the distance. Shift change, or rather, task change, because now you get to help the oiler, the man who oils the guests, and scrapes them afterward, with a dull bronze blade. Bet you're excited. You hand off your mop like it's a cursed object, gently, reverently, and with the posture of a man who's seen too much tile. Your palms are pruny, your tunic clings in new places, and somewhere beneath your right knee, a blister is forming a personality of its own. Time to assist the unctors, the oilers. In theory, this job sounds fancier. You're handling scented oils, helping clients prepare for bathing, standing a little taller. In practice, it's damp, slippery, and one awkward sneeze away from disaster. Your new workstation is a curved bench beside the warm basin, stacked with shallow clay bowls filled with olive oil, sesame oil, and something experimental that smells like fermented lavender and regret. You recognize the lead oiler, an older man with a shiny forehead and an expression permanently stuck between tolerant and about to explode. He hands you a strigil. It's not sharp, just a dull crescent of bronze with a smooth handle. Still, if you angle it wrong, you can make someone bleed. You do your best not to. Start with the back, he says, gesturing to a man already seated on a wooden stool, arms folded, eyes closed. Medium pressure. If he yells, ignore it. You nod, dip your fingers into the warm oil, and start rubbing it across the man's shoulders. His skin glistens. You try not to think about the dozen other backs you'll oil this hour, or how many of them will have. Features. The Romans didn't just oil for comfort. This was part of the cleansing ritual. The oil loosened dirt, sweat, dead skin. Then the strigil scraped it all off. In theory. In practice, you're creating a thick, grayish sludge that clings to your strigil like wet wax. Don't let it fall on the floor, the oiler warns. You nod again, scraping carefully, and wiping the goop into a small linen cloth. This cloth will be washed later. Or maybe not. No one really knows what happens to the used scrape rags. You glance around. Clients of every class and shape recline nearby. Noblemen who've paid for the premium oil, soldiers laughing loudly at nothing, and merchants loudly bartering over whose oil smells most like cypress. A few younger men are already half asleep, faces blissed out as oil trickles behind their ears. There's a rhythm to it. Oil massage, scrape, wipe, repeat. It's almost hypnotic, if you can forget what's actually in the mixture you're removing. Historians still debate whether strigil scraping was fully hygienic or just performative. Some argue it helped remove toxins. Others think it just pushed grime around in a less visible way. One thing's clear, the Romans loved it. And you, dear listener, are up to your elbows in their favorite spa treatment. Try the thighs next, your boss mutters. You move down. The client doesn't flinch, so that's a good sign. Or maybe he's asleep. You take that as consent. Then comes the armpit. You hesitate. No one prepares you for this. But there it is, glistening, slightly foamy, and possibly home to a tiny ecosystem. You reach in. You scrape. You live. Someone across the room groans in pleasure. Like being reborn, he says. You briefly consider quitting and becoming a potter. A particularly rotund man waddles over, holding out both arms dramatically. Full scrape, he announces. Top to toe. And use the cedar oil. None of that donkey stew again. You nod. You got the cedar oil. It smells assertive. You start at his shoulders where the skin folds like baked dough and work your way down. He hums. You hum back. It feels less awkward that way. Soon your hands ache from the pressure. Your rag is soaked. Your strigil is sticky. And your sense of smell has filed for resignation. At one point, you swear the oil you're using is starting to separate, like the man is actively repelling it. You stir with your finger, mutter a small prayer, and keep scraping. Near the back benches, an argument breaks out between two clients over who gets the last bowl of rose oil. You duck instinctively. Bathhouse politics are brutal. Use the backup blend. Your boss mutters, tossing you a jug. You open it. It smells like old wine and crush time. Not bad. Not great. You apply it generously. Hours pass. Clients come and go. Some thank you. Most don't. One tries to tip you with a date from his pouch. You accept it, then realize it's been pre-sucked. By mid-afternoon, your hands are shiny. Permanently. Even your fingernails smell like frankincense. Good enough, the oiler grunts. Time to move on. You look up bleary-eyed. To what? He grins. Towel duty. You close your eyes. You've heard stories about towel duty. Most of them end with, and then I got lice. You're not sure how much olive oil has absorbed into your skin, but if you slipped and fell into a frying pan right now, you'd sizzle. Still, no time to reflect. Towel duty awaits. Towel duty sounds soft. Safe. Domestic even. It is not. You're handed a sack of fresh linens by a linearius, a wiry man who looks like he hasn't blinked since Augustus was in diapers. Don't drop them, he says. Don't fold them wrong. And for Jupiter's sake, don't mix the face cloths with the other cloths. You're not sure what the other cloths are yet. You will learn. You sling the sack over your shoulder and enter the apodyterium, the changing room. A cavernous space ringed with niches where patrons stow their clothes in cubbies or hand them off to an attendant. Statues of heroic nude figures look down on everyone with the smug confidence of beings who've never had to clean a towel in their lives. Your job here is straightforward. Swap out damp towels for clean ones. Make sure no one steals any linen, and avoid eye contact with people disrobing too enthusiastically. You're on a corner just in time to see a very old man hop on one foot while trying to peel off a soggy tunic. He's struggling. You step in instinctively to offer a towel. He grabs it, then drops it, then steps on it, then picks it up again, and hand it back to you, dripping. You smile. You do not scream. Some historians argue whether Roman bath towels were made of wool or linen. Linen seems more likely, lighter, faster to dry, and less prone to mold. But accounts vary. What's consistent is that they weren't personal items. These were communal towels, public use towels, which, yes, is as gross as it sounds. You take the wet towel and add it to a basket labeled used. It's already a mountain of limp fabric in various shades of, why is this damp again? The linearius hands you more. Faster, he says. The magistrate's son is coming in. You hustle toward the central bench, where a group of young men are laughing too loudly. They just finished their soak and want towels now. You hand them out with theatrical efficiency, trying to make it look effortless. Not this one, says one, flicking a towel back at you like it's made of thorns. It smells like goat. You check. It doesn't. Not really. Maybe faintly. You swap it anyway. Customer service, Roman style. From there it's a blur. A trail of damp limbs and shouted names. You get called towel boy at least 4 times. One woman, swathed in jewelry and attitude, insists on a warmer cloth. You nod, rush it to the furnace room, and hold it near the vent until it's barely steaming. She accepts it like you've gifted her ambrosia. Around midday, you catch sight of the linearius again, now folding cloths with the precision of a military parade. He's got a system, 2 folds, then a quarter turn, then a flick of the wrist that somehow makes the towel lie flatter than marble. You try to copy him. You fail. Your towel looks like it's hiding a sandwich. You'll get there, he mutters. As you shuffle back to the storage alcove for another armload, you notice something troubling. The clean pile smells off. Turns out, there's no soap left. The last batch was used yesterday, and no one's been to the market yet. So today's clean towels? Just heavily rinsed. You stare at the stack. You whisper, "Forgive me." You hand them out anyway. Because what else can you do? It's towel duty. The next crisis comes when 2 clients start bickering over a folded cloth left unattended. "That's mine," one says. "I saw it first." The other insists it has his name stitched on the corner. You check. It says property of the baths. Neither man wins. You diffuse the tension with a clever maneuver. You hand both of them new towels and collect the contested one for inspection. You stuff it deep into the used pile. Solved. By now, your back is bending. Your arms are dotted with damp patches. One towel actually whimpers when you lift it. Okay, not really, but emotionally, yes. And just when you think the day can't get weirder, a little boy runs past completely naked, giggling. Behind him, a flustered servant chases with a half-folded towel, flapping like a flag of surrender. You pause, watching the scene unfold, and wonder, for a moment, how your life led to this moment. This job, this towel, this sweat. The linearius appears at your elbow again. "You've done well," he says. You wait for the catch. He smiles. "It's time." "For what?" you ask. He leans in to clean the frigidarium. Your spine slumps. Cold water and barefoot nobles. The moment your foot crosses the threshold into the frigidarium, every part of you clenches involuntarily. It's cold, not mildly cool. Nult brisk. Cold like regret. Cold like your exhaling breath turns briefly visible, and you consider whether this room might be a portal to the Alps. This is the cold plunge pool, the final stage in the Roman bathing process. A square of dark water sunk into a floor of blue-veined marble, fringed by pale columns and statues of river gods who seem far too smug about their icy domain. A nobleman shrieks like a stabbed goat as he dunks himself fully under. You shiver in sympathy. Your job here is twofold. Keep the stone floor safe for wet, shivering feet, and scrub the pool edges with a long handle brush. Why? Because body oil, hair, and whatever mystery residue was scraped off earlier tends to collect here, like sediment in a forgotten stew. You're already soaked from towel duty. What's another layer? You grab the brush. The bristles are coarse, stiff, and still damp from yesterday. You lower it to the edge of the water, where a thin film clings to the surface like a ghost refusing to leave. Scrub, circle, dip, repeat. A new patron enters, trailing attendants, and the kind of confident chill that comes from owning land, horses, and probably half the bathhouse. He tests the water with his toes. Shivers. Scowls. "It's warmer in the Tiber," he mutters. You resist the urge to whisper, "Then please, go there." Instead, you keep scrubbing. Historians still argue whether the frigidarium was more symbolic or practical. Was it meant to close pores after sweating? Or was it just a final slap to the nervous system? A reminder that luxury should always sting just a little? What's clear is that it was never optional. You enter the bath hot, you leave cold. That's the Roman way. A teenage boy cannonballs into the plunge pool, splashing half the wall behind you. A guard yells. The boy laughs. You dodge the cascade and keep working, pretending not to notice that your right sandal has floated away like a tiny barge of misfortune. To your left, a man sits on the bench, arms crossed over his chest, refusing to go in. "I just oil my beard," he complains. No one responds. Everyone's too focused on pretending they love this. You scrub faster. Every 10 minutes, you're supposed to toss a bowlful of fresh water over the stone lip and let it drain through a channel near the back. This keeps the scum from building into something worse. Something sentient. You toss. It splashes. The nobleman who just insulted the Tiber slips slightly and curses. You apologize with a bow so theatrical it qualifies as satire. There's little airflow in the frigidarium, but the chill still seeps up from the floor like the building itself is weeping from the joints. You clench your teeth and keep working, brushing in small circles. The tiles glisten under your labor. Nearby, a woman wraps herself tightly in a striped towel, lips blue but proud. I only stayed in for 4 breaths today, she tells her friend. A new record. Her friend nods solemnly. I nearly passed out at 3. You wonder how long you'd last if forced to dive in. Your record so far? None. You've never even dipped a toe. The senior bath workers joke about how the pool's cold enough to reverse aging. Or kill you. Or both. One insists it causes temporary blindness. Another claims it cured his uncle's gout. You assume both are lying. Halfway through your scrub, the balneator passes by and drops a rolled towel at your feet. Breaks in 15. Don't slip. A blessing. You nod gratefully. Until then, the brush keeps moving. You pause now and then to wipe the marble bench with a cloth soaked in vinegar and herbs. Keeps it from growing a green tinge. The smell cuts through your nose like sharp mint and regret. The crowd begins to thin. People don their tunics again, sandals slapping against the slick floor. The echoing slap 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 of bath-weary nobles heading home. One stops to ask, "Did you see my ring?" You blink. In the water? He nods. You stare into the pool's depths. Black. Bottomless. Full of oil, ambition, and the occasional toenail. You shake your head slowly. Not yet, citizen. He sighs and wanders off muttering about Mercury being a prankster god. You finish your circuit of the floor. The marble gleams. The benches are dry. The brush is bent slightly at the end, like it's lost hope. You take your 15-minute break exactly on time. It's behind the caldarium wall, next to a tiny, half-warm brazier and a crate of bruised figs. You sit. You chew. You do not move. You are a statue with olive oil-flavored lungs and a towel imprint on your forearm. Eventually, the balneator pokes his head around the corner. You ready? He asks. You consider answering. Your next job's the worst one. You sigh. What now? He smiles. Latrine. You knew it was coming. You just didn't expect it this soon. The latrines. The word alone conjures up more dread than the mop, the strigil, or the vinegar-soaked rag ever could. You've heard stories, whispers traded between attendants like soldiers swapping tales of the front lines. And now, you're being sent in. The Roman public latrine isn't some grim little shack in a field. No, it's a wide, marble bench-lined room with open holes carved neatly side by side. No stalls, no dividers, no modesty. Just people, doing what people do, shoulder to shoulder, chatting about market prices, local gossip, or the emperor's latest haircut while relieving themselves. The space is echoey, tiled, and disturbingly breezy. A soft draft comes from somewhere below. You try not to imagine where. Your job, says the Farika's supervisor, handing you a long-handled scoop and a jar of perfume vinegar, is to keep things flowing. You stare at him. He pats the scoop fondly. If something gets stuck, you'll know. You don't ask what that means. Instead, you approach the edge of the long bench that wraps the room, nodding politely to the 3 patrons mid-conversation and mid-squat. One glances at you, waves his hand lazily. Could use more sponge sticks, he says. You nod, backing toward the wall where a row of tersorium, sponge-on-a-stick tools, sits upright in a basin of vinegar water. You grab 3, replenish the jar, and try not to think about what part of them you're holding. There is no escaping this reality. Romans did not have personal toilet paper. The tersorium was shared, rinsed between uses in vinegar or salt water. Some bathhouses even employed slaves to hold the stick ready. You, thankfully, are not that slave. You're just a refill guy. That's somehow both better and worse. As you do your rounds, you notice the floor beneath the bench has a narrow drainage channel running underneath. This is the key to the system. A constant trickle of water flows below, carrying away waste. A marvel of Roman engineering. Until something blocks it, which it is. Right now, you kneel. You stare into the dark, sloshing channel and see something. A lump. A mystery. Possibly a tunic fragment. Possibly a rat. You don't get to decide. You insert the scoop and jiggle it carefully. The patrons above you carry on talking about grain prices. You feel something dislodge. There's a soft glorp, a shift in pressure, and suddenly the channel burps to life again, sucking water and everything else back into motion. You wipe your brow. Victory. Historians debate just how clean these latrines really were. Some say the flowing water and regular maintenance made them relatively sanitary. Others argue that diseases like dysentery spread like wildfire because of poor hygiene and communal tertiarium use. Either way, the workers, they got the worst of it. You spot a corner where a patron clearly missed the mark. You sigh, grab a rag soaked in vinegar and mint oil, and scrub. The floor is slightly sticky, and the mint just makes it smell like mini disaster. Nearby, a child bursts in with wide eyes, pointing at one of the holes. There's a snake down there. You freeze. The supervisor leans in. Again. Apparently, it happens. Sewer snakes. Not mythical monsters. Just very real, very long, very confused creatures that occasionally swim up through the waste channels, only to surprise unsuspecting bathers or latrine users. It's said that Emperor Augustus himself once suffered a nasty nip mid-visit. You offer to check. The supervisor hands you a torch stub and a stick with a bronze bell tied to the end. To scare it, he says, not entirely reassuring. You approach the indicated hole, wave the bell around the rim, and peer in with the torch. Nothing. Just shadows and echoes. You pretend to look longer than you do, then pronounce it snake-free. The child beams. You return the bell stick, slightly haunted. Another patron asks you to light incense near the entrance. Too many scents clashing, he complains. You comply, placing a cone of compressed myrrh on a small brass tray and setting it aflame. The smoke spirals upward, noble and tragic, like it's weeping for your career path. Eventually, the crowd thins. The bench empties. The smell settles into something resembling background. You sit briefly on the step near the wall, spoon resting across your knees. You're not proud, but you're not broken either. That comes next, because now you hear the words you've feared since dawn. Time for hypocaust duty. Your head jerks up. The underfloor furnace. The crawl space of heat. The literal belly of the bath. You wipe your hands. Slowly. You stand. You walk toward the fire gate. The floor above you will soon be warm. You? Not so much. You're led through a narrow side corridor most bath patrons never notice. Low ceiling, soot-darkened bricks, and the telltale hiss of heat rising through cracks in the stone. Welcome to the underworld of the Roman bath, the hypocaustum. This is where the magic happens, or the labor, depending on your angle. The hypocaust is the brilliant Roman invention that heats the floors and walls of the hot rooms above. It works by circulating hot air and smoke through a grid of small pillars and tunnels under the stone floors, all powered by, you guessed it, fire. And guess who tends a fire? You. You're handed a heavy shovel and a bundle of kindling by a worker whose eyebrows have long since been singed away. Feed the furnace every 15 minutes, he says. Too little and the water gets lukewarm. Too much and you crack the floor tiles. No pressure. He shows you the fire mouth, a blackened archway just tall enough to crouch into, and gestures toward a smoldering mass within. The wood's already half charred, the ash thick, the heat physical. It hits you like a slap made of summer. You drop to your knees and crawl in, feeling your hair flatten under the moisture in the air. It's like entering a dragon's throat. The fire roars as you add wood. Smoke spirals around your arms. You squint. Sweat pool. You're instantly soaked in ways your towel shift never managed to achieve. Historians still debate whether hypocaust workers were slaves, hired laborers, or something in between. Some evidence suggests they were paid, but poorly. Others think many were prisoners or debtors, working off punishment below the public's feet. Either way, the conditions are the same. Smoky, blistering, and invisible. You retreat from the fire to breathe. The tunnel ceiling is so low you're forced into a stoop waddle that would have been funny in any other setting. Here, it's just the norm. Above you, you can hear laughter, splashing, the murmur of gossip, and warm conversation drifting down through the vents. You imagine someone lying flat on the caldarium floor, sighing at the heat generated by your suffering. Don't let the soot build up, the supervisor warns, handing you a hooked stick. You're meant to scrape the walls clean while the fire burns. Perfect. The soot clings in thick veins, like wet charcoal paste, sticky and fine. You scrape. It flakes. It lands in your mouth. You taste fireplace and lost dreams. To make things worse, the floor you're walking on? Not a floor. It's a grid of raised stone pillars, leaving space beneath the actual floor above. You have to walk carefully along tiny ledges, ducking between columns, so you don't fall into the furnace channels. One misstep, and your shin is kissing lava brick. Still, you move forward, shovel in one hand, stick in the other, smudged like a mythic chimney sprite no one will ever sing about. And then it gets hotter. Apparently, one of the bathhouses nearby has increased capacity today. More guests, more heat required. You're told to double the fuel. You protest silently, with your eyes, your sweat, your trembling knees, but the logs keep coming. You feed the fire. You become the fire. Everything begins to shimmer. Even the rats down here look flushed. Eventually, someone brings you a water jug. You drink. It's warm, but not bathwater warm. Just barely tolerable warm. You chug anyway. Somewhere deep in the tunnels, you hear someone else cough. Another hypocaust worker? Possibly a ghost. You choose not to investigate. There's a rhythm to the stoking. Open the fire gate, toss the wood, fan the embers, back out. Wipe your forehead. Scrape the soot. Repeat. Every 15 minutes. Forever. And yet, you begin to respect the strange genius of it. The Romans designed this entire heating system without fans, without motors, without electricity. Just convection, airflow, and human labor. Lots of labor. Too much labor. But it works. The floor tiles above are warm. The bathers sigh contentedly. And you, the creature from the coal tunnel, make it happen. Eventually, your shift ends. Not with fanfare, not with applause, but with a single grunt from the soot-faced overseer. Go wash. He points back toward the entrance. You crawl out into the light, blinking like a mole in sudden sun. Your face is streaked black. Your arms shake. You smell like a fireplace mated with a sweat lodge. Wash means one thing now. Back to the scalding water of the caldarium. You sigh. Back and you go. The bath never ends. Steam slaps your face before the door even closes behind you. Welcome back to the caldarium, Roman bathing's own personal volcano. The air is thick with heat and humidity. It's the kind of place where breathing feels optional and everything you own becomes instantly damp, including your will to continue. Your task? Self-clean, the balneator says, pointing toward the basin. You shuffle toward the marble edge, dragging soot, ash, and several new regrets with every step. A servant hands you a small bronze ladle. You scoop the water and pour it over your arms. It sizzles on contact. Let's be clear, this is not a gentle soak. This is a scald. Romans like their hot rooms hot. Some scholars estimate the caldarium could reach temperatures close to 50 degrees Celsius, 120 degrees Fahrenheit, with humidity that wrapped around your lungs like a wet wool sock. You find a stool, stone, slick, slightly slippery from previous occupants, and sit. You reach for a strigil, the dull, curved metal scraper used for centuries to remove oil, dirt, and sweat. A symbol of cleanliness, but not comfort. You run it slowly down your arm, watching as soot and old olive oil peel away like bark from a tree. It's gross. It's weirdly satisfying. You resist the urge to narrate it like a skincare video. Then comes the back. You twist. You reach. You fail. A voice behind you chuckles. Need help? You glance back to see another worker, a woman no older than you, already gleaming with sweat and confidence. You missed a spot, she says. You hand her the strigil. She gets to work. First time in the hypocaust? She asks. You nod. You didn't pass out, she says, so that's better than Lucius last week. You make a mental note. Lucius, possible ghost. She finishes scraping and hands the tool back. Don't forget your feet. That soot works its way in like a curse. You bend to clean your toes, marveling at how your once beige tunic is now permanently two-toned, gray and darker gray. It's quiet in the caldarium, strangely so. The bathers here speak in murmurs, as if afraid to disturb the steam gods. Their skin glistens, their eyes half close. It looks like a relaxation haven. You feel like a boiled turnip. One elderly man nearby hums softly as he pours water over his head. You catch the tune. It's ancient, something vaguely familiar. A lullaby, maybe? Or a drinking song made respectable by age. Your fellow worker leans in. They say if you hum loud enough in here, the steam carries your voice to the gods. You consider humming. You do not. Instead, you dip your cloth into a basin of herb-steeped water, rosemary, lavender, and something vaguely medicinal. You wipe your face, your neck, your arms. It helps. A little. Some historians argue that the caldarium was the true heart of the Roman bathhouse, not the tepidarium, not the frigidarium. This was where the real relaxation happened. Muscles loosened, toxins purged, stories shared. It was also where deals were made. Patrons chatted about land, politics, gladiator matches. Some even brought scribes, dictating letters while they steamed. You glance over, and sure enough, there's a man reclining on a marble bench while a servant scribbles notes onto a wax tablet. The man is completely nude. The servant, fully clothed. Neither seems uncomfortable. Only you do. You rise from your stool, skin raw but cleaner. A worker hands you a towel, the good kind. Fresh, light, smelling faintly of citrus and ancient ambition. As you dry off, the woman who helped you with the strigal gestures to a side door. Time for the laconicum, she says. You like it. You eye her warily. Dry heat, she adds. No steam. That sounds suspiciously appealing. You follow her out of the caldarium, stepping carefully so you don't slip on the condensation. Every step leaves behind a wet footprint in the shape of a question mark. The door swings open. Inside is the laconicum, a circular room with a domed ceiling and a central brazier glowing red like a dragon's eye. No steam, just dry, heavy heat that soaks into your bones. You sit on a wooden bench beside the fire. The woman stretches out like a cat. You'll sleep better tonight, she says. If you live that long. You close your eyes, just for a moment. And then someone yells. Drain's clogged. Your eyes snap open. She sighs. You're up. Drain's clogged. Again. You sigh. You were just starting to feel not miserable. And now you're yanked out of the laconicum, dripping with barely dried sweat, and trotting toward the palestra, the gymnasium courtyard where Romans wrestle, oil up, and inexplicably fling lead weights around for fun, and where, today, a very unfortunate puddle is spreading beneath the wall fountains. You approach the site of the blockage, nodding to a linen-draped official who frowns like you're late. He points at the drain, which is bubbling gently like an insult. Fix it, he says, in the tone one might use for swatting flies. You kneel. Again. This time, it's a footbath drain. Not as horrifying as the latrines, but not exactly refreshing either. The footbaths catch runoff from dozens, hundreds, of sweaty wrestlers and well-oiled bathers. The smell is best described as peppery armpit meets herbal regret. You remove the stone cover carefully. Underneath, a soup of water, hair, leaves, chunks of something. You wish you hadn't looked. The drainage system here is deceptively complex. Beneath the bathhouse runs a series of channels carved in stone, gravity-powered, cleverly sloped. A marvel of engineering, unless something blocks them, in which case you get a tiny stagnant swamp in the middle of a public spa. You jab in a hooked rod. It hits resistance. You twist. Out comes the culprit, a wad of hair and oil-soaked string, tangled around what appears to be a sandal strap and one fig. You don't ask. You clear the channel. Water gurgles, swirls, and drains away like a long exhale. A moment of satisfaction. Brief, like all good things. Behind you, a child screams as a runaway discus nearly decapitates an elderly man. No one reacts. You're still adjusting to the Roman definition of normal. The palestra itself is a sight. A long, open courtyard lined with columns, sand underfoot, the air sharp with the tang of sweat and ambition. Dozens of men and a few ambitious women wrestle, leap, stretch, box, or practice tossing the halteres. Those iron hand weights that look like baby anvils. Keep those clean too, a supervisor says, gesturing toward a pile of equipment. So now, you're wiping down public workout gear. Congratulations. The halteres are slick with oil. Wrestlers rub themselves down before matches, not for appearance, but to prevent their opponent from getting a good grip. It's like trying to hug a fish, a very aggressive fish. You polish each one with a rag soaked in vinegar and rosemary, trying not to gag. The cloth goes black within minutes. One of the wrestlers, enormous and glistening, lumbers past you and tosses a used sponge over his shoulder. It lands on your foot with a soft slop. He doesn't look back. You remove it, gently, like one would a venomous jellyfish. Historians still argue whether Roman hygiene practices were genuinely advanced or just impressive looking. The bathhouse is clearly a feat of architecture, but did the communal nature of everything, from sponges to foot baths, undo its benefits? What's certain is this: someone always had to clean up. You move to the sanded part of the palestra, where scuff marks and sweat puddles accumulate in subtle patterns. Using a curved rake, you smooth it out, an ancient version of grooming a Zen garden, except it smells like ham. An elderly patron watches you work. I used to do that, he says, leaning on a staff. Back in Tiberius' day. You nod politely. Found a coin once, he adds. You rake with more interest. No coin today. Just a piece of broken pottery and what might be a tooth. Time passes. You rake. You wipe. You scrape. You dodge a flying javelin. All in a day's work. At one point, a minor nobleman approaches, nose wrinkled. There's a smell near the oil jars, he says. You follow the trail to a small storage alcove where amphorae of bath oil sit in rows. Olive, sesame, and occasionally exotic blends with myrrh or cinnamon bark. Behind one jar, you find a broken egg. Rotten, cracked, leaking onto the stone like some forgotten prank of the kitchen gods. You clean it. You question every decision that brought you here. And then, mercifully, you're told to head toward the apodyterium. Changing room duty. You have survived the worst, temporarily. You shuffle back through the corridors, nodding to other attendants, all equally damp, equally exhausted. A few exchange the Roman equivalent of high fives, a nod and a shared look of pure, quiet suffering. The apodyterium is calmer, quieter, but not without its own hazards. Because here, theft lurks. And guess who's on locker patrol? Welcome to the apodyterium, the Roman changing room, and arguably the most civilized part of the bathhouse, until something goes missing. You're stationed at the far end of the room, where rows of cubbyholes and hooks line the walls, each one stuffed with tunics, sandals, jewelry pouches, and the occasional suspiciously heavy toga. Patrons come and go, chatting, stripping, toweling off, redressing, and occasionally glaring at you like you might pocket their signet ring. Your job? Keep watch. You're the locker room hawk, the human alarm system, the poor soul held responsible if one man's sandal walks away in someone else's bag. It starts off calm. A merchant with gold-threaded cuffs strips off his tunic and nods to you. Watch this, he says, stuffing it into a cubby. It costs more than your job pays in a year. Charming. He saunters off toward the steam rooms, leaving you alone with his wealth and your temptation. You don't even glance at it. Well, you glance once, but only to note that it's not that stylish. Then comes the rubber, the red-faced man with too many opinions and not enough personal space. He insists on changing right beside you, even though half the room is empty. Too many young lads these days don't respect the cubby system, he mutters, cramming his shoes into a corner slot. You nod vaguely. They think no one's watching, he continues. They think. A scream interrupts him. You both turn. A teenage boy has just realized his belt pouch is missing. He's still dripping from the bath, clutching a towel, and pointing frantically at the shelves. It was right here, he shouts. My father's seal was in it. Oh. The rune changes instantly. The background chatter halts. I swing toward you. Because of course you're the guard. The boy's accusations swirl like bath steam. You try to calm him, asking what the pouch looked like, which shelf, who might have been nearby. He shrugs and says, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. Fantastic. You start scanning the room. Careful, methodical. You're not trained for this, but you're also not trained for this. You've seen enough shady towel bundles and casual glances to know what looks suspicious. That man over there, innocently tying his sandals, looks fine. That kid trying to slide behind a pillar with a bulging towel, less fine. You intercept him. You ask to check his bundle. He stammers, eyes darting. You stay polite, calm, non-threatening. Eventually, a tiny leather pouch falls out. It matches the boy's description. You return it, mildly triumphant. Everyone claps. Okay, no one claps. But someone grunts approvingly, which in Roman bath terms is basically a standing ovation. You're allowed a sip of barley water in the corner, a luxury at this point, and you sit beside the oil urns to cool off. Some historians argue that theft in Roman bathhouses was common enough that many patrons brought slaves specifically to guard their things. Others suggest that fear was often enough to keep things honest. Either way, attendants like you walked a fine line, visible enough to deter trouble, invisible enough to avoid being blamed for it. You're right in that sweet spot now, tired, sore, and only moderately covered in other people's oil. Your next duty is less stressful, if more humiliating. A nobleman arrives, silver-tipped beard, scroll case under one arm, sandals so clean they practically glow. He walks right past the cubbies. Box attendant, he says, not even looking at you. You follow. Turns out he has a private box, small, walled off, tiled in green glass with his family seal etched above the door. The VIP suite of the apotitarium. Inside, he carefully removes his cloak, folds it, places it on a bench. Then his sandals, belt, and finally his tunic. He doesn't acknowledge you until he's fully nude and seated, drying his ankles. Then he hands you a scroll case. Do not drop it, he says. It contains Cicero. You suppress the urge to say, I prefer Seneca. Instead, you bow and store it in a locked cubby. He waves you away like a fly. You return to your post just as a new problem arises. Someone can't find their towel. You hand him a spare. Then someone else complains about sandals being swapped. You fix it. Then a man insists he left with 2 rings, not 1. You smile. You search. You find it. It had fallen into his tunic's fold. He apologizes. Sort of. You don't care. You're developing what can only be described as towel-based clairvoyance. The day presses on. Patrons come and go. Children giggle. Arguments bloom and wilt. And you remain at your post, a quiet guardian of public nudity and scented fabric. As the light through the upper windows shifts, signaling late afternoon, you hear the distant bell that means end of shift. Or rather, the beginning of the final task. You brace yourself, because now it's time to sweep the caldarium tiles. With lemon peel. You return to the caldarium with broom in hand, lemon peel tucked into a rag satchel at your waist. The air is still thick, still humming with heat, though the crowd has thinned. Most of the upper-class bathers have gone home to nap or argue about taxes over oysters. What remains is steam and your fate. Tile sweeping. Now, this isn't the broom and dustpan type of sweeping you're used to. No, this is Roman tile cleansing, which involves scrubbing every inch of the hot marble floor with oil-soaked lemon peel, then buffing it dry using a twisted cloth, all while dodging puddles and holding your breath against the deep musk of 100 strangers' spa experiences. You kneel near the central basin. It's still warm. The surface ripples faintly from someone's recent splash. You dip a peel into water, squeeze it gently, then begin scrubbing a circle. The citrus hits your nose, sharp, clean, oddly luxurious. A rare moment of niceness. It lasts 0.4 seconds, because the soot from earlier is still on your hands. Your knees are raw. Your back pops when you lean forward, and you have all of the caldarium left. A supervisor passes by. Make it gleam, he says, like Apollo's backside. You decide not to picture that. Too late. Scrubbing tiles is repetitive, meditative, soul-numbing maybe, but also hypnotic. The marble, once dulled by steam and sandals, begins to reflect the dim torchlight. You move in long arcs, polishing. The scent of lemon mixes with the faint perfume of old olive oil and human ambition. It almost feels peaceful until someone slips. A bather you didn't see returns for his forgotten strigil and promptly performs a flawless banana peel slide across a half-wet patch. He lands with a grunt. You freeze. He sits up, rubs his elbow, and, miracle of miracles, laughs. You help him up. He thanks you. You return to scrubbing, now doubling your efforts in that section. Some scholars debate whether the Romans really used lemon in their bath cleaning routines. Citrus fruit wasn't cheap, after all, but plenty of records mention sweet-smelling peels scattered in foot basins, and lemony oils were prized. Whether it was a cleaning agent or a flex of wealth, still up for debate. Either way, you're scrubbing citrus onto the stones like your life depends on it. You notice something odd near the edge of the caldarium, a small bronze charm wedged between tiles. You pluck it free. It's shaped like a tiny fish with curled fins, probably a personal amulet. You hand it off to the lost item table and receive a grunt of approval from an older attendant. Second one today, he mutters. People lose everything in here. Names, rings, dignity. You both laugh quietly. The floor begins to shimmer in the torchlight. The tiles are warming up again from the hypocaust below. Remember that heat pit you nearly fainted in? It's working overtime again. You can feel it in your knees. You press onward. Eventually, the lemon peels go soft. You swap them out. Your rag is soaked through. You wring it out in the basin. More scrubbing, more gleam, more quiet. This part of the job, no one writes poetry about. No odes to tile buffers. No sonnets for sponge wielders. And yet it matters. The next group of bathers will enter to gleaming marble, smooth scent, a place that feels like luxury. And they won't think about how it got that way. But you'll know. You move to the far corner where soapstone benches sit. You kneel, wipe down each one. In the grooves between tiles, you find stray hairs, bits of wax, even the corner of a crumbled pastry. Someone snacked in here. Barbaric. You clean anyway. By the time you finish the last section, your tunic clings to your back, and your hands feel lemon-braced. A balneator inspects your work. He grunts. Approvingly. You think. Go cool off, he says. Before you pass out, and we have to use you as a towel rack. You stagger to the frigidarium, the cold bath chamber. Stone walls. Rippling blue basin. Air like mint in your lungs. You dip one foot in. It stings. You slide in anyway. Your skin shrieks. Your bones throw confetti. You feel reborn, just long enough to regret every other moment of the day. A young boy swims past, dunking his head like a dolphin. He doesn't even flinch. You sink to your shoulders. Silence. Coolness. Stillness. No steam. No towels. No orders. Just breath. You sit there a long while. Eventually, a bell rings again. Time to towel off. Tomahawk amphory. Time for whatever task comes next. But for now, you let the cold water pull the heat from your bones. You stare at the tiled ceiling, counting cracks. You wonder, idly, how many centuries of sweat have soaked into this stone. Probably too many. But for now, it's clean. You made it clean. And in Rome, that's worth something. You're back on your feet, mostly. Slightly less lemon-scented now, thoroughly chilled, and walking with the stiff gait of someone who's done battle with marble and steam. Your next assignment, oil duty. At first, it sounds promising. Pleasant, even. Oils in ancient Rome were the stuff of decadence. Infused with lavender, myrrh, saffron, even ground pearls if you believed half the aristocrats boasting. But your job isn't to enjoy these oils. You're here to portion them out, refill the amphory, and make sure no one overindulges. Because bathhouse oil isn't free, and one too generous pour can cost a week's wages. You head toward the unctuarium, the oil room. It's tucked beside the tepidarium, away from the steamiest chaos. The walls are lined with niches holding amphory of various oils, each marked with painted letters. L for lavender, R for rosemary, M for myrrh, and so on. A patron arrives, shirtless, gleaming. He smells like someone tried to make a salad out of incense. Sesame oil, he declares, thrusting out his hand. You pour a careful trickle into a shallow dish. He sniffs it, frowns. No, less nutty, he says. You try again, blending it slightly with a dash of spikenard. He sniffs, approves. Next time remember my face, he says. You smile. You will absolutely forget his face. This continues for the better part of an hour. Patrons drift in, demand oil, sniff it like wine tasters, and vanish. Some rub it into their skin right there. Others have attendants do it. One man, very wealthy, very pink, insists you oil his shoulders for him. You do. He tips you a single bronze coin. Worth it? Debatable. Your hands are now permanently slippery. Every amphora handle you touch is a hazard. You nearly drop one full of rose oil. Enough liquid luxury to fund a minor festival. Somewhere between patrons, you help another attendant drain used oil through cheesecloth. This oil, collected from scraping stations, foot baths, and dropped dishes, is filtered and reused for cleaning. Definitely not for skin. It smells like defeat. You try not to breathe. One amphora has a crack. You plug it with wax, binding it with a cloth twist. A fellow worker leans in. They say Cleopatra used to bathe in this stuff, she says, lifting a flask of jasmine-infused oil. You squint at the oily sheen. Historians still argue whether that was Egyptian myth or Roman PR. You reply. She grins. Either way, I bet she didn't have to scrape it off tile grout. You snort. It's the first time you've laughed today. As the shift winds on, your fingers become slightly translucent from handling so much oil. Everything you touch squeaks or slides. You leave fingerprint-shaped smears on stone, on wood, on your own arms. You are the human version of a salad dressing. The final batch of patrons file through, latecomers, often rowdier, with less interest and subtlety. One dumps half a dish of rose oil on his chest and winks at a nearby woman. She ignores him. You hand him a cloth and move on. Cleaning time comes again. You and two other workers empty the drip trays under the amphory. You gather stray oil cloths, toss the worst ones, and stack the others in a reed bin for laundering. You pause to scratch your face and regret it instantly. Your eyebrows are now scented with pine. A magistrate enters with his entourage, all elegance and pointed sandals. He does not look at you. He selects sandalwood oil. You offer the dish. His servant takes it. The magistrate lifts one arm, waiting. The servant oils him slowly, reverently. It's a whole ritual, in your background furniture. But then, something unexpected. As the magistrate turns to leave, he glances at you, just for a moment, then nods. You're not sure why. Maybe the oil was perfectly poured. Maybe your silence was appreciated. Or maybe he's just having a generous day. But it feels like a victory. And then, crash. A glass vial slips from a ledge and shatters on the stone. Thick oil splashes, trailing ribbons of amber across the floor. Everyone freezes. You move. Quick. Cloth out. Hand steady, you mop and contain the spill before it hits the tepidarum threshold. Disaster avoided. A young worker nearby claps. You bow. Slightly. Oil duty complete. You report back. Next, you ask. The reply is immediate. Laundry. Basin scrub. Towel wringing. Of course. You're directed toward the lavatrina, where towels, sponges, and garments are soaked, scrubbed, and rinsed in giant basins by hand. No pouilles. No magic. Just salt water, elbow grease, and aching fingers. You plunge your arms into the first vat. Warm. Murky. Smells like rosemary and sadness. You begin wringing, and wringing, and wringing. The sun outside is setting now, casting long golden stripes across the stone floors. Somewhere, someone is lighting lamps. You see their glow flicker in the reflection of the clean, glossy tiles you scrubbed earlier. They gleam. So do you, but mostly from oil. You're elbow deep in linen and regret. The lavatrina isn't glamorous. It's hot, steamy, loud, and smells like a bad decision made by someone who really loved rosemary. The towels, hundreds of them, come in all states of ruin. Some are mildly damp. Others could legally qualify as weapons. You lift one. It drips with bathwater, oil, and what might be the dreams of a man who spent 4 hours in the caldarium talking about his olive farm. You plunge into the first basin, salt water and vinegar. It sizzles faintly. Or maybe your ears are just ringing. Scrubbing here isn't optional. The Romans believed strongly in hygiene, or at least the illusion of it. Patrons expected clean towels with every visit. Never mind that these towels were washed in the same 3 tubs, over and over by workers who hadn't seen a dry hand in weeks. You scrub, and rinse, and scrub again. You work next to an older woman with arms like marble columns. She doesn't speak much, but she wrings towels so forcefully they make a sound like snapping twigs. You'll get stronger, she says, not unkindly. Or die trying, you think. Someone hauls in a basket of sandals next. Some are leather, some wood, a few covered in tiny bronze studs like mini warships. Your job: wipe, polish, pair. You begin sorting. One sandal is half-eaten. You do not ask by what. A young boy, maybe 10, maybe 12, runs in, trailing a bundle of bathrobes. He dumps them into the basin with an overly dramatic sigh. 3 more baskets coming, he says. You consider faking your own death. He scampers off. You squeeze another towel. Water runs in rivulets down your arm, soaking your elbow. Some historians believe Roman laundry techniques were surprisingly effective. Using lye, vinegar, and ash, they could lift oils and stains from linen with relative ease. Others argue that most clean towels still smelled faintly of mildew and regret. The truth? Likely both. You pause to massage your hands. They're pruned, raw in spots, slick in others. Someone sneezes. You flinch. Relax, says the marble-armed woman. Steam always makes people sniffle. You nod, try not to sniffle yourself. Eventually, the towels are wrung out, folded, roughly, and stacked into reed baskets for redistribution. Your next stop: strigil duty. Yes, those curved metal scraping tools the Romans used to clean themselves. They're waiting in a wooden basin like a pile of angry punctuation marks. You fish one out. It's caked in oil and flakes of skin. You gag internally. Then you dunk it in vinegar water, scrub it with a reed brush, and rinse. Repeat 37 more times. Some are clean in seconds. Others seem cursed. You debate naming them. The ugliest one you christen Brutus. As you work, a young woman approaches. Did anyone turn a bronze mirror? You point to the lost item table. She rifles through it, finds her mirror, then looks up. Thank you, she says. You nod, slightly startled. Human kindness still exists. Once the strigils are clean, you dry them and lay them out in neat rows, gleaming like tools in some spa-themed apothecary. Another bell rings. Not the end of shift bell. The final patron's leaving bell. You straighten. The halls begin to clear. Shadows stretch across the floors. You're sent back to the atrium for last check. The marble is scuffed. You kneel one last time, cloth in hand, and polish the spots where sandals scuff the floor. Around you, the pillars glow softly in torchlight, golden and pale. The bathhouse is emptying. Slowly, finally gently. A final few patrons drift toward the exit, wrapped in linen, chatting idly about politics or poets or the price of garum. You see the old man from earlier, the one who slipped. He catches your eye and gives a half wave. You wave back. The atrium clears. Silence. You stretch just a little. Your back protests. Your shoulders have become stone under skin. But you did it. You worked the entire bath shift. You survived. Barely. A senior attendant approaches. You're on torch snuff duty tonight, he says, handing you a stick of damp linen. Of course you are. You walk the halls slowly, pinching out the smaller flames with careful swipes. The larger torches will be left to burn for warmth, but the sconces and lamps must go dark. Room by room, you dim the bathhouse. One final stop, the frigidarium. Still water. You crouch beside it, breath clouding faintly in the cooler air. Your reflection looks like someone who's fought a small war with dirt and towels and lost. You grin anyway, because the marble shines. The oils are sealed. The sandals are paired. And for one brief moment, everything is peaceful. You rise, snuff the last lamp, and step into the soft, flickering dark. The final breath of heat lingers in the stone as you step outside. The bathhouse behind you sighs, quiet and still, like a creature finally allowed to sleep. Torches flicker low near the main entrance. You pause to press a hand against the outer wall, warm, smooth, ancient. You can feel the echoes of voices still humming inside, as if the place itself retains memory. Night in Rome isn't silent, not even close. The streets echo faintly with clatter, sandals on cobblestone, the bark of a mongrel, the occasional yell from someone who drank too much at dinner and forgot their way home. But here, just outside the bath complex, there's a hush, a tired, sacred quiet that only settles when the last bather has left and the last towel has dried. You should go home, collapse in a bed, let your limbs turn into something soft and untroubled. But something keeps you here a little longer. You sit on the edge of a low wall, legs stretched, head tilted back. Above you, the sky is dark velvet, scattered with stars. No light pollution, no neon signs. Just ancient constellations, Orion, Pegasus, Scorpio, stories etched into darkness by people who also scrubbed tile floors and wondered if their knees would ever forgive them. You let your breath slow. The night air smells faintly of ash and herbs, and the last curls of someone's sandalwood perfume still clinging to your sleeves. From inside the bathhouse, a faint creak, probably a shutter settling. But otherwise, it's just you, and the stone, and the gods, if they're still watching. And somehow, in the deep ache of your back and the lemon oil staying still in your fingers, there's a strange sense of pride. You kept the place running. You carried the heat, the water, the scent, the rhythm. You were invisible, but essential. Some historians argue whether bathhouse workers were respected or resented. Were you honored for your diligence or pitted for your sweat? Hard to say. Maybe both. Maybe neither. But you were here. And tomorrow, you'll be back again. Because the marble never stops gleaming. The sandals never stop arriving. The oil always drips. You lean back, spine cracking gently. One last deep breath. And now, finally, you stand. Begin to walk home. Your feet slap the stone, slow and even. The wind nudges the hem of your tunic. A cat darts across an alley, eyes glowing. A baker's oven, somewhere nearby, begins to roar, starting early for morning bread. And you're already fading into sleep, even as your eyes stay open. Muscle memory guides your steps. Every street corner dream. And as you reach your door and push it open, the world finally dims. The city exhales, and you fall into rest. Let your body soften now. Uncurl your fingers, those fingers that hauled buckets and polished stone and wrung linen until they ached. Let the heat drain from your shoulders, that Roman weight of duty and sweat finally lifting, like mist rolling off marble at dawn. Breathe in slowly. Let the scent of lemon oil and warm tiles fade away, replaced by the cooler hush of sleep. That cold basin where you paused, that shimmer of torchlight on the atrium floor. Let it flicker dimmer and dimmer now, like a lamp burning down to its final ember. The sounds grow quieter too. The low bell, the distant splash, the quiet hum of breathless voices gone. In their place, silence. A kind silence. The kind that lingers just before dreams arrive. And your feet, bruised from stone, tender from toil, feel lighter now. You're no longer walking Rome's corridors. You're floating. The marble beneath you has turned to cotton, the sandals to silk. The night stretches long and slow, and even the gods have turned their gaze away, letting you slip unnoticed into slumber. You've worked enough. You've done more than enough. So close your eyes. Let your mind settle like dust on a clean tile floor. And sleep. Sleep as if Rome will wait for you. Because, sweet dreams.